I like watching this podcast. It's not a podcast, I guess. It's a show on Facebook called Lateral with Tom Scott. He asked like these interesting questions. So like one of them was like Air Force One took off and landed, and it was no longer Air Force One. Why? Right? And he's got a bunch of comedians, or I guess they're comedians. I don't know. They're smart people. I don't know influencers. And they all try to guess what the reason was. Wait, do you know the answer to this one?
No, I do not. I mean, I can guess.
Take a guess. What do you think it is?
Because whoever was the president on the plane was no longer the president when it landed.
So who was the only president that could have possibly happened to? Nixon.
Okay.
He resigned, got on the plane. It was Air Force One. And then Carter took over, right? It was before my time. I'm from 1980, but it was Carter who took over, I think, right? Whoever took over, I look forward to your emails of how stupid I am about American history. Became president, and the plane changes its call. It's no longer Air Force One anymore because the president's no longer on the plane. So anyway, so he did one. There's a podcast called, I want to say the School of Fish is what it's called. And he asked the group, the reason I thought it was relevant because it's about a podcast. The School of Fish podcast released their 500th episode, but it wasn't their 500th episode. They released it one number short. Why? And they figured out that the show is associated with QI, which is this British TV show. It's about general knowledge. It's a great show. If you haven't watched it, check it out. And then they start getting into it. They're like, it must be like a nerd number. Like, did they skip like the pi or like E? Or the guy's like, oh, keep going. Up until the 400th episode, it was fine. The girl was like, so one of the comedians was like, did they skip 420? And he's like, they would have celebrated 420. Like, which one? They skipped 404. And no one noticed.
Well, because it wasn't found.
So they went 403 to 405. And I guarantee, I don't know when that came out, but I would love to assume that the timing of that was equivalent to the Mr. Robot episode where he like visits his family home and the family home is not there and the address is 404 Main Way or something like that or whatever it is.
And by the way, going back to the American history bit of it, the only reason I know the answer and didn't know the person was really because of the movie, not because of history.
Do you have files or email to move from one platform to another? Or maybe you're doing a digital transformation from on-premise servers to the cloud. Check out MoveBot, one of our premier sponsors here at All Things MSP. Moving files and email during a transition, onboarding, or upgrade can be time-consuming, tedious, and be derailed by surprises and risks. Reduce your technician workload and increase migration reliability with MoveBot. Check out MoveBot using our special link, which you can find in the description of this post, or just go directly to atmsp.link/MoveBot.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the All Things MSP podcast. My name is Justin Esgar, and with me always is my good friend, what looks to be a Jedi fight happening in the background there, Mr. Eric Anthony. What's up, dude? Are you light side or dark side, my friend?
I think I tend towards light side. Funny story. I did actually, because I was playing with the colors to see if I could get away from red and blue, because it's not really on brand, right? It really should be red and orange, but it just looks all red when I do that. The orange really doesn't.
It just looks like the daytime. You should just be outdoors.
Something like that.
Yeah. I recently found out that there was getting a little nerdy about Star Wars, and I'm not a big Star Wars person, right? But you got your blue lightsaber, you got your green lightsaber, everybody knows those. You got Samuel Jackson's purple lightsaber. Apparently, there was also a yellow and a white lightsaber, and the white lightsaber were for people who had like the omnipotent force or whatever it is. If I'm getting this wrong, I look forward to your tweets and emails.
Which I'm sure will be coming in mass, because great percentage of Star Wars fans in the group.
I think there's most people that if you're a Star Wars fan and you're a part of the ATMSP Facebook group, facebook.com/all things MSP, I am ready to take on you as a keyboard warrior because that's what Facebook is for.
All right. Well,
we have a guest tonight. See, like I'm joking on my own jokes. We have a guest today. I love it when we have a guest. I say that often. We have the most interesting man in the world. Screw that Dos Equis guy. Mr. Jeff Farris, CEO of CloudRadial. Let's bring him up. Jeff,
Hey.
How are you, man?
Good. Hey, Eric. Hey, Justin. Good to be with you guys.
Thank you so much for being here, Jeff. Why don't you give everybody like a 2-minute like who you are, what's CloudRadial, and what's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Favorite ice cream flavor? That's a tough one, because my first job was in an ice cream store, and man, when you get to taste everything, you kind of create your own concoctions, right? So it's nothing better than being 15 in an ice cream shop, right? Let me just tell you, that was like the dream job, right? So good life, good times. You're right, and I appreciate that. I am the most interesting man in the world because I'm the only one I really know well, so that's good. And then just I think I'm interesting if nothing else because I've got the Dyson fan back behind me, right? I mean, I kind of would kill for Eric's background because again, the Dyson fan, I don't know what it says about me, but I think it makes a statement. I'm not sure. So
if you angle it correctly, because in the pre-show when we were talking and you were in a smaller window, it actually looked like the window in an airplane. So I was really impressed that you were joining our podcast from your private plane.
Yeah, I'm just taking a break from that. We're in a refueling area right now, so it's good. It's all good. So.
All right, so I'll redo my question. So we'll start with, hey Jeff, how are you? Tell us all about yourself in CloudRadial, and if you had an airplane, would it be called CloudRadial Force One?
Of course it would. Of course it would. Right. Well, then it'd actually be called CloudRadial Force 2 because there would be 2 of them, right? So I'm not sure which one I'd be on, right? So,
okay.
But
so why don't we tell everyone what is CloudRadial and what's it do for MSPs?
So CloudRadial really simply is all things client, right? So if all the client touch points we pull together in a single unified client portal, sounds exciting, doesn't it? Pull together everything client into a single unified client portal. It includes ticketing, training, assessments, CSAT, everything an MSP would want to present, and especially reporting, Office 365 reporting, ticketing reporting. If you have CloudRadial as an MSP, basically you turn your relationship with the client from an email and phone relationship into an online relationship, a digital relationship. So everything you'd want to give to them is in the portal. Everything they want to give to you is in the portal. Basically, the CloudRadial makes an MSP work like every other vendor that small business works with. And so the last time somebody submitted an email ticket to Amazon to order something has been like never. The last time you submitted a ticket to AT&T to order a new phone has been never. And for an MSP, when you have CloudRadial, you have that unified client experience. Basically, the last time that they will send you an email a ticket by email will be never, right? So, and it creates a huge efficiency for both the client, for the MSP, and really does take that MSP into a full digital relationship with clients. It's very scalable, right? Because that's the goal, right? Everybody, if you've got more than one client, scalability is a factor, and putting that into a digital experience makes that a very scalable endeavor. So
that's awesome. A lot of times I always feel like MSPs are always looking for like that single pane of glass. And if I'm hearing you correctly, you're kind of doing that, but for the client side as opposed to the MSP side, right? The client now has this single pane of glass to be able to access all of the components that an MSP would be providing to that client, right?
It's really single pane of glass for both. And what's interesting is when you start pulling together ticketing, 365, backup, all these different reports into a single pane of glass for the client, you also have a single pane of glass for the account manager as well, or for that MSP. and being able to work with the clients online and digitally just means that, again, you create that scalability. Not your clients want that single pane of glass too. They don't know what an MSP does. They don't know what even they're supposed to do, and they just know you from your invoice typically, right? So when you send them a $5,000 invoice a month, that's usually all the description they get, unless you give them a QBR or business review, and they don't want those, right? I mean, you don't want the lighting company, you don't want the electric company coming out and tell you about their transformers and poles and how they comply with all the federal standards. And neither does the client want to know about all the things you're doing for security. You're either secure or you're not secure. You're keeping them secure, you're not keeping them secure. From a client perspective, that's about all they want to know.
I love that you're saying this, because I'm literally having this argument with like other MSPs I know and even my own team, because like the idea of like, there was this cartoon that came, I mean, it's been out for a long time, but it came back around my desk the other day, where it was like a person is like, everything's broken, what are we paying you for? And then the bottom one was like, everything's been working fine, what are we paying you for? Mm-hmm. And like the idea that the client, like, I've never questioned my water company or my electric company. Mm-hmm. My lights just work. I don't care. You're right. Like, I don't care about the transformers. I don't care about the wiring. I don't care. Does it work or does it not? And I've never asked them for a report. And I find it funny that in our industry, that is like somehow or other the norm, that the clients get to like press on to be like, what have you done for me lately? Which it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be at all. It should be, you should not give a what I've done for you lately. You're able to work and make money as a business.
Well, it's actually even worse than that. I mean, because when a client asks what the MSP does, and they're looking to that MSP to be their technology leader and innovator, maybe even their VCIO, and the MSP goes, let me show you what we've been doing for you. Let me print this report and show you, right? Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, the MSP is basically using, 1940s technology, right, to print and present a report to their clients, where they're showing them that they're the technology innovator that's there to help them meet these challenges, right? It's painful to watch these MSPs do that. And then what's even worse than that, when you're having to print and present, and basically you're always on a defensive posture. You're always on, your back on your heels, because the client is kind of ticked off that you're charging them money. Because again, you're either not doing anything or you're doing it wrong. And so they're just ticked because you even exist, that they even need you. They don't know why they need you. And then when you're in there to defend yourself, you basically put them to sleep with all this technical data they're not interested in, right? And at the end of the day, an MSP, because of the way this is structured right now, the MSP never gets a chance to listen to the client and find out where that client's going, what they're going to do next, because they're always in there defending the business they did. They really don't have a good quality experience to talk about the business they're going to do, right? And so not only is it painful to have to do business reviews based on data that you have to print and present, but it just sets the tone all wrong for anything you want to do down the road. And what we're seeing with the trends in the industry, with AI, with automations, all of this stuff, that MSP, if we don't change things, the MSP is going to get way behind the curve in the next 5 years, just hopelessly behind the curve with where their clients want to go with what the MSP can actually do for them.
I mean, I agree. There's part of that. And Eric, you can touch on this one, because you've said this before about, the MSP needs to not just be fixing things and saving money. You need to be able to help the client make money, which means you need a seat at the table, which is kind of like what Jeff is talking about here, which is like, where do you want to go with it? MSPs, I believe, need to really step up their fractional CTO skills, which that is not easy for a lot of people. And be able to like bring that to the forefront, because I feel like, and Jeff, you're dead on with like the printing of the report. It's so archaic, and to say like, this is and I, what you said, defensive, and pissed me off a little bit, because I got defensive, because I realized that like I had a client who, called me a couple weeks ago, and they were like, the only reason I pay my bill is because you answer my immediate text messages. These are all, it's so high, and I don't know what I'm getting from you, but you respond to me, and that's why I'm paying you. And I got defensive about it. Now I'm getting defensive about being defensive. You know what? I'm done. I'm done here, Eric.
So let me play devil's advocate for just a second. Not that I disagree, but I think this needs to be mentioned, that traditionally, up until the last probably 4 or 5 years, MSPs have been a nice to have rather than a have to have. We have not been in that position of a utility like the electric company. I also think that we lack the standards and the compliance of a regulated industry like the electric company or like the phone company, for good or bad, right? But I think what's happened then is there's such a disparity between one MSP and another that they do kind of wonder what they're paying for. Because with the electric company, you don't have to understand electricity to know what you're paying for. You're paying for power to come to the house, and when you go to a light switch, for that always to be able to turn on, which theoretically at this stage in the game is where the IT industry needs to be. We need to be more or less a utility because we are dependent on as much as electricity is. Now,
so
go ahead, Jeff.
So there's a commoditization of IT that has to be there, right? And so, do we have good, solid equipment? Is it efficient? Is it secure? Those are basically commodities now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, an MSP is supposed to design that and deliver it. But to remember, the typical MSP now, if they're doing things correctly, are charging way north of $100 per seat. Some MSPs are charging more than $200 a seat. And we're talking about $100 to $200 a seat for a piece of equipment that costs about $60 a month, right? So the MSP is making more than Apple is on these devices, right? Now, if you go back a little bit, and one of the things the MSP has, again, I believe it or not, I've been around the industry for a while in spite of my youthful appearance. But there was a time before MRR when basically MSPs were called more elegantly VARs and integrators, right? So basically they would start each month with 0 in sales, and they would have to talk to their client to figure out what to sell them that month to get more revenue, right? And in that phase, the VAR integrator MSP was very tight with their client because they were in there trying to solve problems so they could monetize it and pay the bills, right? And then we went to MRR and things all became about the stack, right? And so we need to manage the stack. We need to manage automation. And MSPs went from being very customer focused to being very technically focused. And I think what's getting ready to happen is we're about ready to become very customer focused again.
Yep.
And, and to go to your point, yes, there does need to be standards for MSPs, and there does need to be a certain base level of commoditization where when one MSP says you're secure, that actually means you're secure, right?
Yep.
Canada's going to a letter grade. We've got a lot of initiatives here. NIST 2.0 is coming out. There's a lot of things that will help drive some of that. But from a client perspective, let's think about this from the client perspective. And Justin, that client that talked to you is kind of ticked off. Well, let's design this experience from their end back to you, right? Because most of the MSPs today have been I call it navel gazing to a certain extent. You're busy looking at your navel, trying to figure out like the meaning of life, the meaning of your stack, which tool is better, which, MDR tool do I want? Do I want MDR? You're so focused on those things to basically create that basic level of commoditization that we forget that we're supporting the client as a result of this. And so when we quit looking at our own navel, right? We quit navel gazing, we start talking to clients. Now we start seeing it from their perspective. And we're a service business that really doesn't emphasize service, right? I mean, since we emphasize ticketing, but ticketing's not service, right? When I contact Amazon support, it's usually something's going wrong, not something's going right. And so if you design your experience from the client in, that's where I think things have to come. And so if you think about from your client's perspective, their experience, the way you've designed it right now, Justin, is around invoicing and ticketing, right? And so if they think about you as a VCIO, it's almost an accident, or it's because you've worked with them in depth, because the ticketing and the invoicing don't necessarily leap out and say, I'm a qualified VCIO and I'm going to help you grow your business, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to go back and think about what a client wants. And it's the same way Apple does. That client experience for Apple starts as soon as you open the box, and then everything's designed. And then when you get to it, hopefully it just works, but you kind of get way into the path before you realize that maybe FaceTime doesn't do what you want it to do and you have to use another application, right? Or whatever it is. But Apple's pushed that so far down in the customer experience journey that you don't notice it. And so, or by that point, you're already hooked on the ecosystem. And I think for the MSP, we start from the inside out as to what we're going to do, what tools we're going to use. I mean, if you look at Reddit, it's one post after another. I'm getting ready to start an MSP. Which PSA do I start with, right? I'd love to see the Reddit post go like, I'm getting ready to be an MSP. What do your clients want from you, right? That's the better question to ask, right? What do your clients want? I'm getting ready to start an MSP. What do your clients think that I should be delivering as services to that client, right? Because if you actually ask the client, security, efficiency is one thing, but I think the next thing is you get into compliance. And most MSPs need to understand there's a huge difference between security and compliance. They're not related at all. And compliance is what their auditors ask about. Their compliance is what their board asks about. That's the first step. Of course, clients don't want compliance either, so that's a kind of an issue. But then the next step after that is productivity. And so how do I get the most out of 365, the tools that I have? Other applications that MSPs don't manage typically, like the CRMs and the phone systems and all that, how do I get that wired together? Collaboration, how do I facilitate a broad focus on inside that small and medium business? Now, a lot of times emerging enterprise clients that MSP service, how do I make them more collaborative and basically drive things? And then the last thing that every MSP should be thinking about for their clients is how to help that client make better decisions and how to get them better insights to make better decisions, right? Because in this scheme of things, if you want to be VCIO, you have to, at the end of the day, deliver outcomes that help that small medium business grow. And that comes from data, insights, collaboration, mobility, all the things that what the client wants, but we've been trained almost as an industry to focus on security, right? And so again, if you notice, I've got a couple of soapboxes here I can pull out and I can stand on, right? But the big thing is we don't start from the client side out. We start with our PSA, and to me that's just the wrong conversation.
I am loving every piece of this because what's funny is that you don't even. I run an Apple consultancy, so when you start talking about Apple stuff, I was like, does he know? And the ACES conference, acesconf.com, is all about the business side of IT consulting, not the technical, because I'm trying to teach people, and we do that here on the podcast, and we talk a lot about it in the Facebook group. It's not about the technology. The amount of conversations I get sucked into with like, what PSA should I use? Who cares? Just use whatever. It doesn't matter. Because really what you're saying about it being client-centric is so, so important. I've had fights with people about being an official Apple consultant, right? So there's a program at Apple called the Apple Consultants Network. Mm-hmm. I am a member of it. And I have had literal arguments with people who, they're friends or whatever, but I'm like, you're missing the C in ACN. You're not being a consultant. You're being the plumber who's fixing the pipes because they said that, FaceTime's not working or Word's not working or whatever. You're not bringing anything to the table. Now, what's even funnier about this is that particular client who I was talking about earlier, years ago, a good friend of mine showed me how he was doing kind of like a QBR-ish document. And my client agreed to let my friend, who was a consultant, my competition, but in a different area, who was up and down, go through this with them. And I put together a whole plan and built it out. And I'm thinking to myself now, and this is pre-pandemic, I'm thinking to myself now, I was like, okay, we bought them new servers, we got them new computers, we got them new Wi-Fi and new this and new that. I was like, at the end of the day, they dropped like $50,000 of hardware and labor. Did they make the ROI on that? Did we actually produce anything to make them work faster, work better, work smarter? Truth be told, probably not. Sure, they're more secure. And I think every MSP who does Office 365, and I joke around about this, saying all of you do Office 365, stop saying that's what you do, because we all do it. Get a different thing to work on. But to say I secure your Office 365. Why? Because you've gone into their tenant and you looked at that security score thing and did everything that's in the list for you to do. That's right. Not being a consultant. You're not doing for the client. I'm cursing a lot in this episode. Eric's getting mad because he's gonna have to bleep me 9 times. But you're not doing anything for the client like that. The client doesn't care. The client wants to know. Can I get to my email when I take my trip to Aruba, which is not in the United States, and therefore you've blocked it because you've locked down all of our stuff so tight because you tell me we're secure. And then they go to Aruba and it works, and they go, oh, thanks for making it work. And then you realize I didn't do it. I didn't set it up right from the get-go.
Yeah. I mean, Jeff, I share, one of your soapboxes is clearly customer experience. And I share that one very deeply because I believe that is where, we have to go, not just from a consulting framework, but because that's how people want to interact. And I think having a customer-centric portal, which is what CloudRadial is bringing to the market, gives them that portal, that access that they're looking for, that, like you said, that they get from Amazon and those other places that they're always interacting with. And it gives them the access to that information when they want it, rather than having to wait for the MSP to run a report or schedule a QBR or something like that.
So you're welcome to come help out our marketing team, because that's exactly the pitch, right? Because at the end of the day, we had this campaign we ran calling, you need to kill the QBR, and we got so much, trolling in a sense for that, right? People in the industry, right? And what we were talking about was killing the QBR the way it's done today, because they're not client business reviews, they're MSP business reviews, right? And basically you're reviewing your business for the client when that's not really what the client's interested in. And then surprisingly, the clients don't, they deferred or don't show or don't pay attention during those meetings. I was talking to one MSP and he said, we've got it all nailed down, Jeff. He goes, you don't understand. We go in there, we talk for 45 minutes, we ask them questions, and then we pack it up and our clients are fine. I don't think they are. I don't think that's what they hired you for. And that's really what they want to talk about, is how, you're managing their transformers and wiring, right? I just don't, I could be wrong, but I think maybe you're not reading the body cues,
Well,
who you're talking to in those businesses.
I would love to know if that guy still has those clients too. That would be the other thing.
Well, then what happens is you find yourself talking to whoever you get pushed down to. You talk to the office manager, you talk to the assistant office manager, you talk to the intern, you keep getting pushed down the stack because you're not that interesting. If you're interesting, they will push you to the CEO. They will push you to the board. Right? If you're interesting and you have things that will help that business grow or really become more efficient, the office manager will walk you. So look, stop right now. You got to go tell what you just told me to the CEO. If they're not doing that, you're not really having an effective business.
The other problem, you have to be none of them are going to be first, and then you have to be strategic to stay.
I was going to say no one can be interesting because obviously, as we determined in the beginning of the episode, you're the most interesting person.
Clearly, right? Yes, I mean that's duh. So if you think about it, when say your sink isn't draining, right? you call the plumber, and you probably got a favorite plumber in the book, right? But if that plumber's busy, you call another plumber and you don't think twice about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's commodity. Unclogging a sink is a commodity service. When you need an agreement done and you call your attorney and your attorney's on vacation, you don't call another attorney. You wait for your attorney to get back from vacation, right? Because that attorney is strategic to you, right? He understands your business. He or she understands your business, understands what you're trying to accomplish, understands the risk factors your business faces, and understands basically how to engineer your agreements to help you grow your business, right? And if you look at the MSP, if they can't get into FaceTime or they can't get into, do they really need to call you? I mean, they call you because of your contract, but in the plumber analogy, couldn't they just call anybody that understands FaceTime and get that problem fixed?
Yeah.
And that's the risk the MSP has in
their
growth.
nephew.
Right, their nephew, whoever. And if they can call another MSP and get the same answers that you would give them, you're a commodity, right? Yeah. And that's what MSPs are missing, because again, they focus on the tools, not on the client.
Yeah, so
100% agree.
Your next marketing campaign is going to be "Don't be a plumber."
Hashtag don't be a plumber.
Let me just create a little controversy here, because I have this personal peeve, and again, I'd be curious to see how this flies, but I'm not a big fan of the logos on the shirts, right?
Yes. No, I'm with you. I'm 100% with you.
So if you think about who shows up at your house or at your business with a logo on the shirt, it's never your attorney. It's never your accountant, right? It's never an interviewee, right? It basically, when you show up, you define through the way that you communicate subtle clues as to who you are and what knowledge you have. And if you basically build your relationship around ticketing and printed reports and boring QBRs, and you show up with your name on your shirt, again, the combination of all of that just pigeonholes you as a guy that's smarter than the nephew, but not as smart as your attorney, right? And if you want to become that VCIO and you want to become that professional and you want to create that professional relationship with that client, I think you got to dress the part, act the part, and then, we feel like with CloudRadial, you need to carry that into the digital experience. So when they deal with you, they don't deal with a really clunky ticketing portal or an email. They talk with you with a portal that's their IT hub, not just your portal to submit a ticket.
I'm 100% on board with this, and it's funny because I think he left. My HVAC guy was here earlier, and he was wearing a polo with his thing, and I love my HVAC guy. He's a very nice guy. Mm-hmm. But yes, it does show a commodity. I make it a point when I used to go into the city more often pre-pandemic, you dressed professionally. I would wear a nice pair of jeans or slacks and like a button-down shirt or a sweater or something like that. I never. And as much as I'm a huge branding whore, I'm the first person to admit it.
Right.
I have my logo on a pillow back here, but I have a virtual hoodie. I'll wear that only at home. I will never wear my brand out. I might have it on I have a patch on my backpack, but my backpack is virtual blue, so it's on brand with what we're doing or close to. But I would never wear it on a shirt. And I 100% agree with you. I was at an event, insert someone's name here. I'm not going to say who, but the amount, there was a big room, probably 200 MSPs. And I was probably one of 3 Apple consultants in that entire room. If not, I think maybe one of 2. And I knew everybody just by the shirt they were wearing. The gray or black polo with their logo embroidered here that they got at the kiosk in the mall. They bought 5 for $20. Knock that off. Knock it off.
Yeah, I get a lot of flack from our own marketing team because at trade shows, if you ever see us at a trade show, all of our people in the booth, all the guys in the booth will be wearing sport coats. Sure. Right? Because my feeling is we need to dress up to earn the respect of our clients And if I'm advising clients on how to run their MSP, which we are, because every tool vendor in this space is doing that, we ought to go in there and treat them professionally and ought to look professional when we deal with them. Now, again, I get pushback all the time. Like, don't we want polos with our logos? Don't we want, it's like, no, we're business consultants. We're business professionals. And as painful as it is, we're going to wear a sport coat, even in Vegas in the summer, right? Because that's who we are. That's what we do.
Let's do for your team. We'll just get them printed CloudRadial undergarments. So that way the marketing team is happy.
We do have that.
And there you go. And no one has to see it. No one has to see it. And everybody's happy.
I'd stand up and show you, but it's, I think it's probably a little more family show than I wouldn't be comfortable with.
You haven't listened to some of our.
We try.
Episodes. No, it's all a mess. So let's bring it back to finish up with CloudRadial. So this tool is you built a tool that matches kind of the persona you're talking about with the professionalism front, right? We talked about it being a single pane of glass. We talked about it being your tool is basically presenting the MSPs as a person in a sports coat for their client, giving that client the access that they need to get to. This sounds wonderful, and I feel like a lot of MSPs would love to get in on this. What is their first step to get in with CloudRadial? What's what kind of every MSP wants to know, like, what's my barrier to entry? What do they need to do to get in? What does it work with? What does it not work with?
We work with 5 major PSAs: Autotask, ConnectWise, Halo, Kaseya, Synchro. So we work with just all the major PSAs that are out there today. We work with Office 365. The easiest way is to go to the website, cloudradial.com, and sign up for a demo. Again, I'm not a big demo guy, but I've always found every time I do a demo, I get smarter, right? Because I understand what they're trying to solve. I understand what they're trying to do. And I get educated on things I never thought about. And again, we see that a lot. And I can't tell you how many demos I've done and our team has done. And we get those little head moments, when the MSP goes, I get it. I understand what you're doing, right? And so that's always a lot of fun. Because again, until you see CloudRadial and you understand it from the client side, it's kind of hard. We put the product together in a way that there's a one last thing to leave everybody with, and that's what we call engagement maturity. And so if you think about operational maturity, which is, basically how to run your MSP more effectively, more efficiently, more profitably. If you think about that, that's kind of like the way you design a kitchen, right? So you want your kitchen to produce food that's hot, fresh, tastes good, all of that stuff. But if you don't have a wait staff to deliver that food from the kitchen, it doesn't work. And so we built around this concept of engagement maturity that mirrors operational maturity, but from the client perspective. And the 5 levels is, it starts off at the chaotic level, which is where most people are today, to be honest, where they're ticketing, phone calls, every ticket's a snowflake, everything's a problem. And so from there, you move to structured, transparent, collaborative, and strategic. And what we found in developing this framework is every larger MSP is moving or has moved to that strategic level. And that's where you get out of the, hey, we're here to fix your printer, right? Or here to unclog your sink, to a point of like, hey, we're here to help you grow. Tell me more about where you're going as a business. And let me help with my experience, help figure out what I can do to help you get there.
That's awesome. All right. So go to cloudradio.com, click on book a demo. I'm sure in the form it'll ask, how'd you hear? Don't say ATMSP. Say you want to have a demo done by the most interesting man in the world, Mr. Jeff Farris.
And basically, I've hired people just as interesting as myself. So almost anybody that gives you the demo is rock solid, right? It's fascinating.
Awesome. Jeff, any final words before we depart for the day?
No, not really. I mean, geez, stay warm. This is maybe a little topical, but geez, some real challenging times out there, but never a better time to be an MSP. The world is getting ready to change dramatically with AI, automations. Again, I've been around this industry a long time, and I don't think MSPs are really cognizant yet of how much change is in store for them. But at the end of the day, the clients are going to be spending more money because things are getting more complicated, and there's never been a better time to be an MSP. So life is good.
Awesome. It's good to be. Can't think of a better way to end the show. So From Eric, I'm Justin. This has been the All Things MSP podcast. Follow us on all of your favorite podcast apps. You're listening to one right now. Check us out, youtube.com/@allthingsmsp. Join the Facebook group, facebook.com/@allthingsmsp. You'll find where we got links for merch, buy a t-shirt. We have a lot of new stuff coming in this year, 2024. A lot of fun stuff. Eric and I have a lot of business conversations about to have, and we're going to be bringing you all awesome content. Not only the podcast, check out the live stream on Wednesdays. There's so much going on. I can't even get into it. It'll be a whole nother episode. So from Eric, I'm Justin. That's it. Bye.
SuperOps is actively engaged in helping all MSPs improve their business. If you did not attend one of their Super Summits in 2023, all is not lost. They've taken some of the great content shared at those events and turned them into ebooks. The first one is called Skyrocketing MSP Revenue from 1 million to 10 million Do's and Don'ts with Dave Patel from Build Right. It contains 12 pages of helpful tips and guidance for MSPs to grow their revenue. Check it out. There's a link in the description, or go to atmsp.link/SuperOps ebook 1. A big thanks to SuperOps for sharing this kind of content with the community.
From your host, Justin Esgar, and myself, thank you for listening to the All Things MSP podcast. Join the All Things MSP Facebook group or follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. The All Things MSP podcast is a BizPow LLC production, and even though we drink a lot of it, this podcast is still not sponsored by Liquid Death. And now that you've watched that mess of a podcast, don't forget to watch one of these and go ahead and click that subscribe button so you get to watch more. Yeah, just go ahead and do it. Click the button and then watch.